objects. So which is nothing but a shared memory technique. You are going to use again a shared memory technique adopted by certain real-time operating system for allocating a shared block of memory which can be accessed by multiple processes simultaneously. So you will be running multiple processes simultaneously, and these multiple processes can access a shared block of memory. So that is nothing but memory mapped object or shared memory concept. So what happens in this approach is a mapping object is created, and you will be having a physical storage for it is reserved and committed. So a process can map the entire committed physical area or a block of it to its virtual address space. So whatever the object is created and the physical storage for that particular object, whichever is created, that will be reserved, and a process can map to that particular object and make use of that entire physical area or a block of it as its virtual address space. So any process which wants to share data with other processes can use it for sharing the data also. So Windows CE 5.0 RTOS uses this kind of memory mapped object based shared memory techniques for IPC, that means inter-process communication. So this is the technique they use. You can see here you can have the physical memory. So this is your actual physical memory. This is process 1 and process 2. So you're going to use different like techniques, some syntax is there to create or using this shared memory thing. So if you are going to use that map view kind of thing, if you do that mapping, so this commits the physical memory for that particular process. So that can be used for this particular process. So from this address location to this address location, so this particular memory is going to be mapped to this particular process. So same way process 2. So again the memory mapped, it can be mapped to virtual memory starting from this address to this address. So the process 1 or process 2 can share its data from process 1 to process 2. So then we have the next concept as message passing. So shared memory is different and message passing is different. In shared memory, both process 1 and process 2, like n number of processes or multiple processes is going to have the access to that particular shared memory. So to share their information or transfer their information like that. So here in message passing, so it is an asynchronous information exchange mechanism used for inter-process or thread communication. So this is also used for inter-process. That means one process to the other process if any communication should happen. So this message passing technique, asynchronous technique can be used. So through shared memory, more information can be shared. But by using this message passing, limited data can be shared. Now, what is the difference between that shared memory concept and the message passing concept means? So through the shared memory concept, you can uh, share more information, data can be shared, but message passing, it is limited data can be shared. So what are the different techniques available for message passing means? One is message queue, the second one is mailbox, and the third one is signaling. We have three different message passing techniques. One is message queue, the second one is mailbox, and the third one is signaling. So now what happens in the message queue means the process which wants to talk to another process posts the message to a first in first out queue. So you will be having a queue, first in first out queue kind of thing. So whichever the process wants to talk to another process, so it is going to post the message to a first in first out queue called as message queue, and that message will be stored, which stores that message temporarily in a system defined memory object. So for some time that message will be temporarily stored in the system defined memory, then to pass it to the desired process. So whichever the destination or the process it wants to communicate to, that it has to be passed. So messages are sent and received through send and receive methods. So you're going to create some send and receive methods. So using that methods, messages are sent and received. So messages are exchanged using a message queue. You're going to create a message queue called like using the concept of first in, first out. So the messaging mechanism is classified into synchronous and asynchronous based on the behavior of the message posting thread. So whichever the message posting thread is there, based on that behavior of that thread, so it can be considered as synchronous or asynchronous way of communicating. So this is message queue. You assume this as message queue, which is nothing but a first in, first out kind of queue you have created. So this is process 1 and process 2. Process 1 wants to send some message to process 2. So through this message queue. So process 1, it creates a send message method. So through that send message method, it places that message in the first in, first out queue, message queue. So that message comes and sits here for temporarily for some duration. And after that, process 2 is going to receive that message using the receive method. So you are going to write the methods for sending as well as receiving the messages. So this is an example how the message passing will happen using the message queue, and the concept they have used is first in, first out. So these are the standard syntax or the headers you are going to use for creating, like posting the message, sending the message, all those things, for creating message queue. So for all those things, these are the syntax you are going to use. So the post message, this is used for posting the message. So these are all the parameters that particular method is going to have. So our post thread message, both are same, post message or post thread message. So this API is used by a thread in Windows for posting a message to its own message queue. So you have to create a message queue, and process or thread wants to send some message or post some message. So this is the syntax it uses for creating or posting a message to its own message queue. So that will be sent to the message queue. Then you will be writing a method called as send message. So this is again, this API calls the sends a message to the thread specified by the handle HWND. So this is the handler, and waits for the callee thread to process the message. So using this, the send message method, it can send a message to the thread specified by the, that means to the destination, whatever the destination or the process or the thread you want to communicate, you need to specify that on this, and to that specified thread or process, this message will be sent, and it is going to wait for the callee, that means the other process or the thread to process the message. Then this is used for creating message queue. So API call, this API call creates a message queue and returns a read only or write only handle to the message queue. So your queue, when you create, it can be either read only or write only. That means when you are sending a message, that is write. So you are writing something onto that queue. So when you are receiving a message, that is read only. So that access it is going to consider either read only or write only access. So then you have open message queue. So you have open message queue API, which is used for opening an unnamed message queue. So you have to open the message queue to know whether any message is present in that queue or not. So that is for that you are going to use this open message queue. Then write message queue. So this call is used for writing a single message to the message queue pointed by the handle H message queue. So whichever the message you want to write onto that particular queue. So for that you have to use this write message queue method. So again, read message queue. The destination wants to read a single message from the message queue. So then you need to use read message queue. Then get message queue info. So you want to know about what is the information, whether like how many messages are present in the queue. So if the queue is empty or if it is full, all those informations about the message queue. So to know about that, you have to use this get message queue info. So it returns true if it succeeds or false otherwise. So again, you should also have close message queue. So this closes a message queue specified by the handle H message queue. So whichever the process has created the message queue and it wants to communicate to the other process, all these things happens and finishes, then you have to close the message queue also. So these are the syntax or the methods which you need to use for creating, posting, writing, reading, for all those things, the message queues. So that is one method of message passing. So next comes the second method of the message passing, that is mailbox. So mailbox technique for inter-process communication in RTOS is usually used for one-way messaging. So you will be having one-way messaging in this mailbox. So the task or thread which wants to send a message, so the task or thread which wants to send a message to other task or thread creates a mailbox for posting the messages. So whichever the task or the thread wants to send a message, it is going to create a mailbox for posting the messages. So the thread which creates the mailbox is known as mailbox server, and the thread which subscribe to the mailbox are known as mailbox clients. That means the sending thread which you are going to send a message from that thread or the task which creates that mailbox is known as mailbox server, and the thread or the task which reads that message or subscribe to that mailbox are known as mailbox clients. So mailbox server posts some messages to the mailbox and notifies to the clients. So whenever it wants to communicate, it just posts the message onto the mailbox and notifies to the other side, that is the clients which are subscribed to the mailbox. So this method is used by MicroC or OS to implement this mailbox as a mechanism for inter-task communication. So this is how it happens. So this is your task one. So it posts message. So this is your mailbox created by this particular task one. So this task wants to communicate with other tasks. So it posts a message to the mailbox. So and notifies to the other processes or tasks. The in the mailbox message is there. So then this mailbox, it broadcasts that messages to task 2, task 3 and task 4. And then when it opens, the task opens that message in the mailbox, whichever is intended to that particular task will only read it and get the information. Other tasks are going to ignore that. Then the third one is message passing signaling. So the third technique is signaling. So it is a primitive way of communication between processes and threads, the very old method kind of thing. So signals are used for asynchronous notification, where one process or thread fires a signal indicating the occurrence of scenario which the other processes or threads is waiting. So whichever the process wants to communicate with other processes or threads, it is going to send a notification by firing a signal kind of thing. So signals are not queued and they do not carry any data. So signals are not going to follow any queue. So it will not follow the queue kind of thing, and it will not also carry any data. It just signals. It is just going to give a hint that so there is some communication between one process to the other process. So the communication mechanism used in RTX 51 tiny operating system is an example for signaling. The OS send signal kernel call under RTX 51 sends a signal from one task to specified task. So similarly, the OS wait kernel call waits for the specified tasks. So VxWorks RTOS kernel also implements signals for IPC. One second. So mailbox and signaling. So these are the three different, one is message queue, the second one is mailbox, and the third one is signaling. So these are the three types of message exchange, like exchanging the message from one process to the other process. The three techniques we have discussed. So in the next one, we have remote procedure call. So remote procedure call is the inter-process communication mechanism used by a process to call a procedure of another process running on the same CPU or on different CPU, which is interconnected in a network. See, in a same system, you are running two processes. So one process wants to call a method or a function which is present in another process. So, or if we are connected in a network, so you want to call a procedure which is present in the other system or other CPU on a different machine, so which is interconnected in a network. So that method is called as remote procedure call. It's the inter-process communication mechanism used by a process to call a procedure or a function which is there present in the another process running on the same CPU or on different CPU, which is interconnected in a network. So in object-oriented language terminology, RPC is also known as remote method invocation. So you might be aware of this RMI, remote method invocation. So in object-oriented OOC and all those kinds, you might have seen this kind of thing, remote method invocation. So the CPU or process containing the procedure which needs to be Okay. Uh, so So the method containing like the procedure containing the CPU which contains the procedure which needs to be invoked remotely is known as the server, and the CPU or the process which initiates the RPC, that is remote procedure call request, is known as the client. So it is possible to implement this remote procedure call communication with different invocation interfaces. So in order to make this RPC communication compatible across all platforms, it should stick on to certain standard formats. So it has to follow some certain standard formats. So Microsoft Interface Definition Language is the ideal implementation for Microsoft for all Microsoft platforms. So for all the Microsoft platforms, you will be using this implementation standard to be followed. So the RPC communication can be either synchronous again or asynchronous. So again, in synchronous communication, the process which calls the remote procedure is blocked until it receives a response back from other process. So whenever a process calls the remote procedure which is present in the another process, that is going to be blocked until it receives a response back from the other process. So in asynchronous communication RPC calls, the calling process continues its execution while remote process performs the execution of the procedure. So in asynchronous way, what happens is if a process calls another procedure which is to be executed in another process which is present in that, so that time it is not going to block the current process execution. In turn, it continues with the current process execution as well the remote procedure call execution. So that is called as asynchronous way of handling the remote procedure call. So this is the concept of RPC. You can see CPU, this is process 1, this is another CPU process 1. So you have the network. So it can be connected either through TCP or IP protocol or UDP. So all those kind of protocols will be used in the network layer. So it makes the connection possible from one CPU to the other CPU, one process to the other CPU when a remote call happens. And you will be using sockets are used for remote procedure communication. So sockets are nothing but it's a logical endpoints in a two communication link. So between two applications running on a network. So in a network, if you are using two different systems, in the two different end points, you will be running two applications in each of the systems. So you're going to create a socket. Two sockets are going to be created. So in one end of the system and another end of the system, it's a software kind of thing. So it's a logical endpoints. You're going to write the code for creating the sockets. So to make the communication possible. So when you come to the next semester, you have all those concepts in the computer network subject as well as in the lab. You will be writing the code for creation of the socket, and you are going to see the communication, how it happens between one system to the other system or within the system from one process to the other process also. So you have programs for that which will be executed in the lab, and you are going to observe that how it is going to happen. So you will be having a port number which is going to be associated with the socket. So so that the network layer of the communication channel can deliver the data to the destined application. So along with the in the socket creation, you will be making use of the port number also, to which that particular message should be destined for in that system, in which application that message should be reached. So sockets, you can have a different types of sockets like internet sockets, Unix sockets, like that. So they are classified into stream sockets and datagram sockets. So stream sockets are connection oriented, and they uses TCP to establish a reliable connection. So you know TCP and UDP protocol, transmission control and user datagram protocols. So TCP is a connection oriented protocol. So when you use the stream sockets, they make use of the connection oriented, and they use TCP to establish a reliable connection between one end to the another end. So TCP provides reliable connection. So same way datagram sockets, it is dependent on the UDP, that is user datagram protocol, for establishing a connection. So UDP is nothing but connectionless protocol. You are not going to have any connection establishment, all those things in this particular connection, like process, like one end to the other end. When you make the connection, when you use UDP, it is called as connectionless protocol.